long jump isn't really something that every, girl wakes up and is like, I want to be, a long jumper.
Exactly.
So how did you kind of get into it?
So it's a funny story, actually. So I did soccer and basketball when I was a kid, and we would often race at soccer practice at the end of practice. And usually I would win in the race. And this one day I ended up losing in the race. I got second place. And I was like, oh, wow. I don't know why I lost. Like, I usually win. And my dad had actually found out that the girl that beat me did track for the summer and got like way faster over the summer. And so he's like, oh, wow, we should try something like that. And I was really kind of like hesitant about it because I didn't know anything about it. I didn't really know if I wanted to try something new at that point. But I agreed to go to one practice, try it out, and see how it went. And then if I didn't like it, then I never had to go back. So I was like, okay, I'll try it out. So I went to that one practice, and I tried like every event. I tried like the 100, long jump, everything. And yeah, just from there, I loved it from day one. And I was like, yep, I'm going to go as often as I can. So.
Well, so you started to long jump out of spite. You didn't want to lose any races in soccer practice, and because I've always wanted to know, if you don't mind, kind of getting into how you get better and how you jump farther, because you think basketball, you dribble, you shoot in your driveway, but for long jump you can't just really like think to yourself like, I'm gonna jump farther. How do you kind of do it?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I was always just like jumping all around. Like every time I went under like a doorway, I would like jump up and touch like the top of the doorway, and I just loved jumping. So I think just when I started, when I was 10 years old, I was just like a natural from the beginning. I was just super like springy, and it was just so much fun. And then from there, once I found like a good coach, it was just so amazing, the improvements from year to year, just from like, doing plyometrics and strength training and working a lot on technique. And it was just stuff that I had never imagined would help. I just thought, I'm going to go out there and practice and jump into the long jump pit, and then I'm going to get better the more I do that. But no, like there's so much more that goes into it. It just takes a lot of hard work in the weight room, and it's a lot that goes into it, but it's so much fun.
And we're good? Yeah, sweet. And so, the unfortunate reason why we're here today is to, obviously we talk about the injury. So I know it's obviously, tough memories for you, and don't want to go down memory road, but if you don't mind bringing us back to that moment, having that injury in a training session, what happened?
Yeah. It's crazy because it was a week before my first competition in about a year, because with the pandemic, everything was delayed, and 2020, I only had a couple of competitions at the very beginning of the year. So I was just getting ready to get back into it. I was gonna go and compete in Arkansas for my first competition of 2021. And it was one of my last practices before I was gonna fly out. And I was in the weight room and doing a plyometric drill. So there was a box that was like 30 inches high. So it was a pretty tall box. And I was jumping from some smaller boxes up onto the bigger box. And I was bringing a little bit of speed into it. So I wasn't just jumping straight up. I was kind of bringing some speed into it and then going kind of like up and out onto the 30-inch box. So on, I think, my third time doing it that day, I just like completely went for it. I went as hard as I possibly could, and I landed on the far edge of that box, and it started to tip over, and I fell off the box, and the box kind of like rolled with me in the direction I was falling. And to try to catch my fall, I like stuck my left leg out and hyperextended my knee, and then ended up like landing on the box and then like on the floor. And I knew like immediately, just my knee was in so much pain. It just like, it was unbearable for like a minute. And then after like a minute of just like pure pain, it kind of went away. I was like, oh, okay, like maybe it's not so bad. It doesn't feel too bad now. So initially I thought I just hyperextended it, and it was sore from the hyperextension, and I was gonna be okay and I would be fine in like a week or so. But my coach looked at it, and he wanted me to get just an MRI just to make sure that everything was okay. So I was in a pretty positive headspace initially, just because I didn't expect anything to ever happen like that. And I felt not too bad. And then I got an MRI, I think a couple days later, and that's when they told me that I completely tore my ACL, and I was just like completely mind blown. I was like, that's the last thing I was expecting to happen. And there was no question, like my dream of making the Olympics wasn't going to happen this year because the recovery is so long and I had to go through surgery. So it was really hard, but I think everything happens for a reason, and I'm still young, and there's another Olympics in 3 years, so that's the goal.
Right, yeah, no, it's only a 3-year wait instead of a 4-year wait this time. I mean, did you ever, because obviously like you said, I know we were talking about it in our first web article when the injury happened, you were quoted saying, you know, I was going to do it, you know, I was going to qualify. Yeah. So did you, you know, ask yourself when you got that MRI result, you know, why? You know, why me, why now?
Yeah, I did. It was a really hard just couple of days of just trying to process what happened, and it was just so completely devastating. I didn't really know how to process it, just because like I was in that mindset that this was my year, and I had worked so hard for the past like 4 years for this year to happen, and I was just so devastated. But I mean, to this day, I'm still trying to process it. I don't think I'll ever like be over it. I don't think I'll ever like truly be like, okay, like everything's all good. But I think I just have the mindset that, you know, I have to take things one day at a time. As long as I work as hard as I can, then that's all I can do. And, you know, I'll be back, and I think I'll be stronger in the long run. So.
You mentioned you're young. I don't really typically know the lifespan, or I should say the Olympic span for long jumpers. So, you know, this was obviously could have been your first games, and there's more games in the future. Is you know, next Olympics, is that your last shot, or would you have, you know, potential down the road?
Yeah, I think the next one, you know, that would be my best chance of making it, because I think that would be like my peak age. At that point, I'd be 27. And then after that, I think I could make another one. So I really don't want to just give up until I do make the Olympics, just because that's been my dream forever and my goal. So I'm gonna just try as long as I can until I make the Olympics. So.
All right, I promise we're done talking about the injury. Now we're
That's
talking.
Okay. That's okay.
Now we're talking about long jump, because again, like we were saying earlier, you know, hockey, basketball, baseball, people understand, you know, how you get better at these concepts, and we're in your gym right now. So do you mind just kind of, you know, talking about what you have to do to jump farther than the competition?
Yeah. So for long jump, you run down this long runway, and there's a board at the edge of the sand pit, and you have to hit that board and jump as far as you possibly can into the pit. And a lot of people don't realize kind of like all the technical aspects that go into long jump. I mean, even more so important than actually jumping is just your run up, because if that's not perfect and if that's not the same every time, then you might take off on a different spot. And if you take off on a different spot, they're going to measure from the far side of the board every single time. So you're trying to hit the same exact spot every single time. And that's the hardest thing about long jump, is just being consistent. So there's so many things that are just running through my mind when I'm about to do my jump. Like, for example, I am thinking of just like driving as fast as I can in those first few steps, and then I'm thinking of just accelerating as much as I can, and then taking off, you know, perfectly on that board, and just springing up and out as much as I can.
So do you know, how many meters is the run up?
So the meters for the run up is about 40. Everyone is different. So I take 9 steps on my right leg, which ends up being about 40 to 45 meters.
So you know how many steps you have to take?
Yeah.
So it's really down to a science of muscle memory.
Yeah, exactly. So I know how many steps I need to take. I'm only counting my first 8 total steps, because that's what I know my drive is. And what I mean by drive is just like very long, powerful steps. So I'm counting those first 8, and then after that, I'm just like bringing it, and I'm accelerating as fast as I can, and I'm staying really tall. And then from there on out, I'm just, you know, not thinking too much and just going for it.
And so clearly you obviously know how many steps you're taking and everything like that. When you're at the start line, you know, say it's the final jump of an event, Is anything going through your head at that point, or is it just you're in the zone?
I think at that point, nothing should be going through my head. Like when I've had my best jumps, nothing has bothered me. There's just been, the only thing I'm thinking about is the first thing I have to think about. So if I'm getting ready to jump, I will just think about that first push. And then from there on out, like I don't have to think about anything. I'm just going and it's just natural. And that's the best feeling, when it's just like everything feels so relaxed, but so like powerful at the same time. So yeah, like in those situations, I ideally shouldn't be thinking about anything. I'm just blocking everything out.
And then the moment, you're a step away from the board, does anything go through your head like here we go, or it's time to jump, or is it just, like you said, it's just nothing's in your head, it's just all the muscle memory taking you through?
Yeah, nothing's in my head at that point. I'm just going for it, and I can tell as soon as I hit the board whether it's a good jump or not. So if I'm hitting the board the right way and I'm popping up, it just feels so good because I just feel like I'm flying through the air, and then as soon as I land, it's like, okay, well, that was a really good jump. But if I hit it the wrong way, then it's like, ugh. And yeah, so there's a lot that goes into it. It's pretty crazy.
And just track and field by nature, a lot of people can compete in high school, play on their different high school teams. So I think a lot of our viewers will kind of relate to some of the events. But when you get to a certain stage, when there's not just parents in the crowd and it's an Olympic trial or a world championship or an SEC championship, what's the difference like, competing in Portland, Maine in the high school meet versus the University of Georgia or the University of Florida? Yeah,
it's a huge difference. I mean, in high school, you just have like your parents and friends there and teammates, and that's about it. So there's really not many people watching in the stands. So you're just there really to try to improve upon your previous performances, and that's about it. But when you're at that higher level, it's just totally different. I mean, the atmosphere is so much more competitive, and there's so many more people watching, and it's such a fun atmosphere, and it's so different than high school. And I think that's one of my favorite things about track, is just being in an atmosphere where everyone around you loves the sport and everyone is watching you. It's pretty cool.
And it's obviously a very individual sport, but it's also a team sport as well. So do you mind just kind of talking about the dynamics between, you're a long jumper, but you want, the sprinters to do well or the distance runners to do well? Yeah,
I mean, I think that's what I love so much about track, is how it's so individualized, but it's also a team sport as well. When I was younger, I mean, I loved soccer and basketball, but I always felt like if I didn't do well, I was letting down my whole team, and I hated letting down my team. But with track, it's like, if I don't do well in a certain event, I'm not necessarily letting down my whole team. It's mostly just letting down myself. And I love how everything is just so measurable. So you can set your goals and you know exactly what you need to do to achieve those goals. But at the same time, like, you're rooting for your teammates, and everyone is there to do the best they can so that the team can do well and win. So. And
speaking of teammates, you have some teammates, going over to Tokyo. So, so what's that like to, I know you said a former roommate is now going to be going over and competing. So have you spoke with them at all?
Yeah, I have spoken with them. I'm super excited for them. They were actually at the 2016 Olympics as well. So this isn't their first time going. They're extremely talented, but I mean, they deserve it, and I'm so happy for them. So I'm going to be cheering them on and watching them when they compete.
And who is that, just so we know?
So Kendall Williams, she was my roommate when I was at Georgia for one of the years, and then Katora Orji, she wasn't my roommate, but she was my teammate who also does long jump, and she does triple jump as well. So she's going for triple jump.
Awesome. And we were talking about it like really before we started getting going, and Isaac and I were talking about it yesterday. Little kids grow up and like, I want to be like LeBron James or Michael Jordan, whatever. But track and field, was there somebody like that you kind of looked up to?
I wouldn't say there was someone that I like really looked up to, but I remember pretty vividly, actually. In 2012, I was watching the Olympic trials on TV. I was a freshman in high school at the time, and I was watching the long jump at the trials. And I remember watching Brittany Reese, who is still a beast, by the way. She's just been going for years and years and is still amazing. But I was watching her on TV, and she was just dominating. And that's kind of when I said to myself, I'm going to be at the 2016 Olympic trials. So she kind of like motivated me to, work as hard as I could to kind of reach that next level. And when I said I was going to be at the 2016 Olympic trials, I was only jumping like 16 feet at the time. And those athletes were jumping 22, 23 feet. So a huge difference. And my parents, I think, thought I was a little bit crazy for saying that. But, I put the Olympic trial standard up on my wall above my mirror and wrote down my goals of how much I needed to improve every single year to make it. And I ended up making it. And so I accomplished my goal of that. So.
And was she in the field in 2016?
Yeah, so she was I believe she was the runner-up at the 2016 Olympics. And then she's also going this year as well. So she's been in the game for many, many years now. And she's still as amazing as ever. So I'll be rooting for her as well in the long jump.
So you went from 2012, idolizing Brittany on
Yeah.
TV, writing down the Olympic, standard, and then you look 4 years later, you're at the Olympic trials, you look to your left and she's standing there right next to you. What was that moment like?
It was pretty amazing. I actually remember the first time I ever talked to her, and that was my freshman year of college in 2015. I was at a competition that she was at, and I just remember being like, wow, like I never thought I'd see the day when I was like competing side by side Brittany Reese, who I've been watching on TV. And I remember going up to her after that competition and just like saying hi and good job. And she knew who I was, and I thought that was pretty amazing. So yeah, she's incredible and a really, really good person too.
And what was that experience like? I know you obviously missed out on it this year, but in 2016, very young at that age, or back then, just to see the crowds, the television coverage, what was that whole experience like?
It was absolutely amazing. I can't even describe how incredible it was. With track isn't really huge in the US like it is in Europe, but when you go to Eugene, Oregon, where the trials are, it's just totally different. I mean, Eugene, Oregon is called Tracktown USA because everyone just is in love with the sport. So when you're there, the stands are completely full. There's 20,000 people in the stands, and there's nothing like it. Everyone is just cheering you on. It's just, you feel like you're in like a football stadium, and which is not, you're not used to that as a track athlete. But it's just absolutely amazing. And I mean, it was really cool that I got to go in 2016 to kind of experience that for the first time, to know what it's like. So when I go in the future, I've already kind of, experienced that, and I don't have to worry about, any surprises. So.
And I would have to imagine there were a little bit of nerves the first time. So you got, like you said, getting that out of the way. And what, again, going back to, when you were on the start line before a jump, nothing's in your head. But did you, in 2012, or in 2016, when you're at the start line, did you look up at all and be like, oh, this is it?
Yeah, I did do that. It was so crazy. I mean, the stands, 20,000 people high above you. I remember just looking up and being like, wow, like I can't believe I'm here. This is crazy. I've never experienced anything like this. And yeah, I was nervous. I was really, really nervous. But again, like I needed that experience to just, to see how it was and be ready for the next one. So.
And I'm just going to zoom up on you really quick.
Sure.
And so, because I'm sure Isaac has told you how this interview will be kind of running over the 2 weeks. So a lot of people are going to be seeing this, and a lot of young boys and girls are going to be like, oh, a Mainer is talking to us about qualifying for the Olympics. Did you ever think a girl from Maine would be able to be on this stage where you're a few jumps away from getting to the highest level of international sports? Yeah,
I mean, I always wanted it to get to this point, but I didn't know if it was a realistic goal that I had. But just every single year, just having that goal in my mind has pushed me, and now I'm here, and hopefully in 3 years from now I'll be at the Olympics. So.
And what advice would you have for those young kids? Was it keep jumping or keep running?
I think my advice would be just work hard every year, set your goals, write them down, but most importantly, have fun. Like, you got to have fun with the sport. I remember when I started the sport, I just loved it so much, and it was just so much fun. So always have fun with it.
And so, you're the expert here in track and field, and you know all these future Olympians, current Olympians. What's something that you think the people of Maine should know who are going to be tuning in to watch these athletes every night for 2 weeks?
Specifically about track or?
Anything.
I mean, I don't know. I think what people should know is just like they're putting in a lot of work. I mean, you look at them and you think, oh, like they're so lucky to be here, and they are, but it takes so much hard work, and it's their entire lives, and it's just crazy how much the work they put in. So just take that into consideration because it's just absolutely incredible what they're doing.
So yeah, every face you will see, is someone that, like you said, has dedicated years, if not their lives, to get to that moment. Is that fair to say? Yeah,
I mean, it's their lives, it's their everything, it's their dreams. So I mean, I can completely relate to other athletes when it doesn't work out, and just how devastating it is, because it's their everything. So yeah.
And then the last thing for you, how does your recovery look? Are you doing it 4 times a week? I think you said like 3 or 4 times a week, or what's kind of your plan until you're back jumping full speed again?
Yeah, so usually recovery is like 6 to 12 months for ACL injury. So right now I'm about 5 months in. So I'm jogging around, skipping around, doing some high knees and some drills. My goal is to be back competing by January. So hopefully by the end of the summer, I'll be back on the track doing some normal things. But yeah, I'm pretty much doing my rehab almost every day. I'm in the gym 3 days a week, but I also do things at home on the days that I'm not in the gym. So yeah, it's a lot of hard work, and something that I never thought I'd have to go through, but here I am. And again, I think everything happens for a reason. So I'm just going to work as hard as I can to be back.
And was this like your first major injury?
Yeah. I mean, I've never dealt with a major injury before. I've had some little things in the past, but nothing even close to this. So I didn't see it coming whatsoever.
And so the last thing, the beauty of a sit-down interview, we can flip the script and go off script. Do you mind talking about the foundation?
Definitely,
at all, and just kind of, if you don't mind, kind of talking about that part of your life, besides, so we're not talking about the ACL any longer? Yeah,
so after my injury, I had my surgery, and a friend came over, and he had been through an injury in the past that was pretty major. So he knew kind of what I was feeling and what I was going through. And he looked at me and he said, like, track is your everything. Like, this is your life, and this is going to be a really hard time not having that in your life for a while. And he said, you need to find something that's going to take up some time and really make a difference in this downtime when you're not competing. And he mentioned, you should consider starting a nonprofit foundation. And for me, something just like clicked when he said that, because it's something I had never considered, but it made complete sense because I have type 1 diabetes, and I also love coaching as well, because I coach at a local college. So everything just clicked, because when people would ask me what I want to do later in life, I would always say, well, I want to do something with type 1 diabetes advocacy, but I also want to do some sort of coaching as well. So I thought, if we start a nonprofit, we can do all of that now. We don't have to wait. And I just think that, if I can change a life, that this injury would be completely worth it. So we decided to start a nonprofit, and it's called DiaStrong Foundation, and our goal is to help diabetics take control of every aspect of their life through education, resources, and sports. So, we're going to be trying to help out diabetics from not only in Maine, but all over, and we want to, help them pay for their supplies. We're going to be giving out grants to help them afford their supplies, because just insulin is crazy expensive, and so is all the other supplies. And then aside from that, we're going to be putting on athletic camps to, help them improve in their sports and to accomplish their goals, but also learn how to control their diabetes as well. And I honestly think that, maybe my injury was supposed to happen so that, we could start this and we could help some people out. So it's really made the mental aspect of my recovery so much better, because it just feels like so amazing to do something, that's going to make a difference and that's going to help people. So
awesome. Have you set any dates for those camps or first events yet?
Yeah, so we actually have one going on right now. So we have a speed and agility camp going on currently. So it's a 6-week long camp, and we're on week 2 right now. But in the future, we're going to be having other camps, and we're going to be having like a 5K fundraiser coming up in October. So that's going to be exciting. So we have some things in the works. But it's been a really fun couple of months getting this going, and I really cannot wait to see what this turns into and watch this grow.
And the 5K just brought up another point that I forgot to ask earlier. Did you do any other events in high school, or, I mean, obviously not in later on, but in high school, did you do any track events, or was it all?
Yeah, so I did the 100 meter, the 200 meter, and the 60 meter indoors. So even as a professional now, I still do the 60 meter and the 100 meter. It's just kind of like my secondary event. So long jump is my main event, but yeah, I still do some sprinting for fun, and I know that I can get better in that as well. So.
And is that something that you're also trying to improve on, potentially, try to make the Olympics in those events?
Yeah, I mean, it would be amazing if I could make the Olympics in those events. I think my focus is long jump at this point, but, if I work just as hard on these other events and I can improve and get better, then I might have a chance of making it for those too, so.
And is there a big difference between the 60 meter and the 100 meter? Or what's that like, indoor and outdoor?
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference. The 100 meter is just a little bit longer than the 60. I think I'm a little bit better in the 60 because I have a really good start. And sometimes I struggle with the last part of the 60. So with the 100, with it being a little bit longer, usually the first half of my race is the best. So I'm a little bit better with the 60 because I'm just so powerful at the start.